differences between intrahepatic and extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. Jean-Jacques, please.
I would like to thank the organizer for the invitation to talk about the genetic of cholangiocarcinoma. I have nothing to disclose, and my talk will be divided in 4 parts. First, a brief introduction about epidemiology and risk factors. Next, the question of cell of origin, the genetic landscape of cholangiocarcinoma, and finally, some words about translation in clinical care. First, about epidemiology and risk factor. Cholangiocarcinoma is the second primary liver cancer worldwide after hepatocellular carcinoma. It is divided in intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, classically defined as tumor that occurs after the second division of the bile duct. It's divided in hilar cholangiocarcinoma, the Klatskin tumor, in distal cholangiocarcinoma, that is the extrahepatic form. Sometimes gallbladder cancer is included in extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, but it is still debated. Surgery is the only curative treatment of all these forms of tumors, but it's possible in less than 30 to 40% of the patients, and most of the patients present in the older study, maybe it is not the cases now, with hilar cholangiocarcinoma and the distal cholangiocarcinoma, whereas intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma is identified in 10 to 20% of all biliary cancer. Interestingly, there is several data that showed an increased incidence of intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma in registry. However, the question is, it is a reality or not, because in this registry, extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, such as hilar cholangiocarcinoma, are sometimes classified as intrahepatic. So we didn't know if there are a true increased incidence of intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, in blue, or it is only a misclassification of hilar cholangiocarcinoma in registry, and the question is still open. The main risk factor of cholangiocarcinoma are no risk factor. It is a sporadic tumor most of the time. However, it is important to note that several risk factors have been described in rare cases, and I will show you some genetic data about CCA related to hepatobiliary flux. It is an infection of the bile duct that is observed mainly in Eastern Asia, in Thailand. It's so Opisthorchis veveriani and Clonorchis sinensis is considered as a group 1 human carcinogen by World Health Organization. As you can see here, it is the region with high flux infection incidence, and there is a very high incidence of cholangiocarcinoma in this region compared to Western countries where intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma is rare. There is also a well-known risk factor, primary sclerosing cholangitis, that and this patient could develop in 5 to 10% of the cases cholangiocarcinoma. There is also bile duct malformation, coloidal cyst, Caroli's disease, that are associated mainly with extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, but the problem in the whole study is that the subtype is frequently not specified. Hepatolithiasis, it is lithiasis in the liver. It's most frequent in Eastern countries, and torotras was an old contrast agent that gave rise to CCA, but it was 50 years ago. Very interestingly, there is specific risk factor associated with intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, such as cirrhosis, hepatitis B virus, hepatitis C virus, diabetes or obesity, and high alcohol intakes. And as you can see, it is the same risk factor that hepatocellular carcinoma, cirrhosis, hepatitis C, B, alcohol, metabolic syndrome. However, the main differences remain that most of HCC arise on cirrhosis, whereas most of cholangiocarcinoma remain sporadic. There is several studies about single nucleotide polymorphism and genetic predisposition of cancer. In cholangiocarcinoma, there is a single nucleotide polymorphism that have been associated with predisposition to this biliary cancer. This SNP belongs to genes involved in inflammation, DNA repair, detoxification. However, all the studies include a limited number of patients, maximum 200. The PCI subtypes is not detailed. Consequently, there is no strong data about the genetic predisposition of cholangiocarcinoma. And moreover, no genome-wide association study are currently available, and we need more data about this, about the genetic predisposition. The next part it is a question of the cell of origin of biliary cancer. There is an old dogma that every student in school of medicine learn. Hepatocellular carcinoma derived from the malignant transformation of mature hepatocytes. Intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma derived from the malignant transformation of mature cholangiocytes, and it's easy, and that's all. However, what is the level of evidence for this finding? Recently, a study was published about the specific deletion of tumor suppressor gene P53 in biliary epithelia using CK19 promoter in mouse model. Using cell lineage tracing, they prove that there is a specific deletion of P53 in only the biliary cells, and this mouse developed cholangiocarcinoma. So, based on this experiment, we can say, yes, cholangiocarcinoma could arise from the malignant transformation of cholangiocyte, but it's not so easy because several authors have asked the question, is the liver stem cells could give to lead to hepatocellular carcinoma formation and also intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma formation. The liver stem cell is localized in the liver between bile duct and mature hepatocyte in the canal of Eyring, and could give rise to mature hepatocyte and cholangiocyte, especially where there is acute liver injury or chronic liver injury, because the mature hepatocyte and mature cholangiocyte couldn't divide in this situation. And this is a very important paper about mouse model with IDH1 and 2 mutation. This is mutation in isocitrate dehydrogenase that is observed in 10 to 20% of cholangiocarcinoma in intrahepatic form. And the authors generated a mouse model with IDH1 and 2 mutation in hepatocyte. Interestingly, the hepatocyte lost the hepatocyte differentiation and acquired biliary phenotype. In a second step, they generated a second mouse model with IDH1 mutation in stem cell, specifically expressed in liver stem cell, together with KRAS mutation. And the control mouse model, and the mouse with only here in blue, you don't see it, but it's here, with IDH1 mutation alone, didn't develop tumors. KRAS mutation leads to hepatocellular carcinoma formation, and the combination of IDH1 and KRAS mutation leads to cholangiocarcinoma. It suggests that a specific mutation in liver stem cells reprogram the cell, inhibits differentiation in hepatocyte, and could give rise to intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma when additional oncogenic event occurs, such as KRAS mutation. And finally, to increase the level of complexity, there is evidence that mature hepatocytes could have a cell reprogramming and dedifferentiate in cholangiocyte and give rise to intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. And I will give you only one example with a specific deletion of P53 in mature hepatocytes using hydrodynamic tail injection of shRNA. So you inject in the vein, in the tail of the mouse, and the vector goes to the liver. And there is a specific deletion of P53 in hepatocytes. The hepatocyte dedifferentiate, acquired biliary markers, and give rise to both hepatocellular carcinoma and hepatocellular carcinoma and cholangiocarcinoma, suggesting that mature hepatocyte could be reprogrammed and give rise to biliary liver cancer. In conclusion, it is only mouse model. In human, there is very few data about the cell of origin of cholangiocarcinoma, but mature hepatocyte can be reprogrammed. There is a high level of cell plasticity. liver stem cells could give rise to hepatocellular carcinoma, intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, and maybe the mixed phenotype, the hepatocholangiocarcinoma, and mature cholangiocytes could also give rise to cholangiocarcinoma. So at this time, only question, no clear evidence in human, and it is the same. Briefly, it is the same from extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. There is some authors that says that there is stem cells in the peribiliary gland, in the male bile duct, but it is not. It has been not proved in human, and is not completely accepted because other authors said that cholangiocytes, mature cholangiocytes, could also give rise to hilar cholangiocarcinoma and cholangiocarcinoma of the main bile duct. In this part, I will talk about the genetic landscape of cholangiocarcinoma according to the anatomy. And this is the first seminal study that analyzes the transcriptome analysis, so gene expression using microarray. It is a mix of intrahepatic form and extrahepatic form, and the authors using gene expression dichotomized and identified two groups, a group of good prognosis in black and a group of poor prognosis in red. So there is prognostic value in assessment of gene expression in cholangiocarcinoma. In a more nosological point of view, there is another study that reports transcriptome analysis to assess the genomic diversity of only intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. And interestingly, they could divide this type of tumor in two classes. First, proliferation classes with activation of several oncogenic pathways, such as RAS, MAP kinase pathway, MET pathway, and this subclass was enriched in KRAS mutation and specific amplification and deletion. And at the other side, there is an inflammation classes with overexpression of cytokine and STAT3 activation. So this is the result of transcriptome analysis, gene expression. Recently, this is the area of next-generation sequencing, and at this time, more than 400 biliary tract cancer have been analyzed using next-generation sequencing. Most of the time, it is whole exome sequencing and RNA sequencing, and it includes mostly the intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, and the goal of this study was to identify the somatic mutation that occurs in the tumor of this patient. And the number of somatic mutation encoding sequence was high. It was 39 mutations per tumor in intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. It is almost the same in extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, 39. For hepatocellular carcinoma, for example, it is 40. So it is the mean level of biliary tract cancer and HCC. However, gallbladder cancer have a higher rate of mutation, 64 per tumor. You have to know that most of these mutations are mutation in passenger genes that have no consequences for the tumor, and there are few driver mutations that I will describe. Before the area of next-generation sequencing, several authors have described the mutation in the well-known tumor suppressor genes, TP53. As you can see, it is a bona fide genetic alteration identified in all the subtypes of biliary tract cancer, intrahepatic, extrahepatic, and also gallbladder cancer. So this is a very important mutation in this subtype of tumors. Interestingly, a recent whole exome study have reported specific hotspot mutation in P53 in the codon 259, and this mutation is a hallmark of aflatoxin B1 exposure. Aflatoxin B1 is a mycotoxin that contaminates culture in Asia and Africa and could give rise to hepatocellular carcinoma. And it is one of the first evidence that aflatoxin B1 exposure can promote the formation of cholangiocarcinoma. There is also a typical activating mutation of KRAS, but only in intrahepatic and extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, and it was very rare in gallbladder cancer. 3 years ago, whole exome sequencing have revealed somatic mutation in chromatin remodeling gene, that is genes that modulates the epigenetic phenotype of the cell. It is a mutation in BAP1 and RED1 ARID1A. It is tumor suppressor gene mutated in several malignancies, HCC, mesothelioma, clear cell renal carcinoma. And interestingly, there is a different distribution between this mutation according to the anatomy. As you can see here, BAP1 mutation is only identified in intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, whereas ARID1A mutation are found in intrahepatic and also extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. So there is a close relation between the subtype of tumor and the genetic defects that are observed in the tumor. There is also a very specific genetic alteration of intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. It is mutation in isocitrate dehydrogenase 1 and 2, 10 to 20% of the intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. And it is most of the time a mutation in IDH1, and in 25% of the cases, mutation in IDH2. And what is IDH1 and IDH2? Isocitrate dehydrogenase converts isocitrate to alpha-ketoglutarate in the cycle of protein. And when the IDH1 and 2 is mutated, it converts isocitrate into 2-hydroxyglutarate, and there is an aberrant accumulation of 2-hydroxyglutarate that is an oncometabolite, so that promotes cell proliferation and cell survival. And you can see that hotspot mutation in IDH1 and 2 have been identified in other types of tumor previously, like acute leukemia, glioblastoma, low-grade astrocytoma. Interestingly, the accumulation of the oncometabolic 2-hydroxyglutarate inhibits genes involved in methylation, like the gene of Tate family or histone demethylase, and this inhibition modifies the epigenetic pattern of the tumors with acquisition of abnormal DNA methylation at CpG island. It is called the CpG island methylator phenotype that is observed in other type of tumor. And you can see here the complete different profile. In yellow, it is hypermethylation of IDH1 and 2 mutated tumors. So it is a very interesting mutation because it gives rise to abnormal accumulation of oncometabolites. And the second breakthrough in the field has been the identification of these fusion genes, FGFR2 fusion for fibroblast growth factor receptor 2, in several types of cancer, including cholangiocarcinoma. And in the different type of cancer, you can see here that this fusion involves the exon 1 to 19 of FGFR2 here, with different fusion partners, BIC1, CASP7, and the genomic breakpoints here is always at the same region in the same intronic codon. Activating fusion protein of FGFR2 have been described in cholangiocarcinoma, FGFR2 PPHN1, FGFR2 BIC1, and FGFR2 AHC1. And interestingly, it could be detected using a FISH. You can see here the two genes in the normal liver, and here, when the two color points is close together, it means that there are a fusion protein. FGFR2 fusion protein transfected in cholangiocarcinoma cells leads to increased colony formation here compared to the wild-type model, and to tumor formation in a xenograft mouse model. It suggests that this protein have oncogenic properties, and FGFR2 fusion proteins autodimerize, autophosphorylate independently of the ligand and activate the RAF-RAS MAP kinase pathway that is downstream the receptor. And the major point is that FGFR2 fusion is a hallmark of intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. In the 400 tumors analyzed by next-generation sequencing, there are only FGFR2 fusion in intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, 23%, and no in gallbladder cancer, and no in extrahepatic cancer. Recently, in melanoma, somatic mutation in the telomerase reverse transcriptase promoter here have been identified. This mutation activates the promoter, increase the expression of the telomerase enzyme, and increase telomerase activity, telomere synthesis, promote cell survival, proliferation, escape of replicative senescence. And interestingly, there is a complete different pattern between hepatocellular carcinoma. We identified that TERT promoter mutation was the most frequent somatic genetic alteration in this type of tumor, and cholangiocarcinoma with no mutation in the TERT promoter, whereas gallbladder cancer harbored the TERT promoter mutation in 21% of the tumor. And finally, whole exome sequencing of gallbladder cancer identified recurrent mutation of the receptor RB3, you know RB2 for the breast cancer. RB3 is mutated in 10 to 11% of the gallbladder cancer and not in intrahepatic and extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. And this mutation are activating mutation, hotspot mutation that leads to heterodimerization with the other receptor RB2 and activation of the pathway. And as we observed in other type of liver cancer, like in hepatocellular carcinoma, there is a strong link between etiology and the genetic defect observed in whole exome sequencing. And you can see here a study that compared the genetic defects of fluke-related versus non-fluke-related intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. And there is a higher rate of P53 mutation in fluke-related CCA compared to non-fluke-related, and a lower rate of BAP1 and EDH1 and 2 mutation. The reason why we didn't know, but it is a very strong result. Finally, this is a simplified genetic landscape of biliary cancer, with all biliary cancer that have P53 that could have P53 mutation, BRCA1 and 2 mutation, PIK3CA mutation, specific mutation of intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, FGFR2 fusion, EDH1 and 2, BAP1, BRAF, sometimes ROS fusion, specific mutation of gallbladder cancer, RB3 mutation, TERT promoter, P10, and there are common mutations between intrahepatic and extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. And for the last slide, I will briefly talk about the potential translation in clinical care. You can see here that the association between gemcitabine and cisplatin is a standard of care in unresecable or metastatic cholangiocarcinoma compared to gemcitabine alone, and the subgroup analysis have confirmed that this increased overall survival is present in intrahepatic form, extrahepatic form, and gallbladder cancer. However, there is no approved treatment in second line, so maybe we could use the genetic alteration observed in this tumor to target specifically and to be more precise according to the tumor biology. And according to whole exome sequencing, 40% of the tumor have targetable genetic alteration. There is some example. For example, in this study that treat patients with vemurafenib in BRAF mutated cancer excluding melanoma, there is 8 cholangiocarcinoma, you can see here, and only 1 partial response. It is very low compared to melanoma. Maybe it suggests that, like in colorectal cancer, the histological context is important, and maybe combined therapy could be in the clue. FGFR2 fusion could be targeted by a specific inhibitor or not specific inhibitor. For example, it's ponatinib and BGG 389 or 98. And this FGFR inhibitor decrease phosphorylation of the FGFR fusion protein, decrease the activation of the MAP kinase pathway, and decrease the colony formation. It suggests that this preclinical model that FGFR inhibition could be interesting in a subtype of intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. And as a molecular case report, this is a 62-year patient with intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma that progressed after gemcitabine and cisplatin. You can see here by FISH the fusion protein, FGFR2 MGEA5, and the patient was treated by ponatinib, a multikinase inhibitor with some anti-FGFR activity, and there is a partial response. And there is an ongoing clinical trial with to treat tumors with FGFR2 fusion, including cholangiocarcinoma. EDH1 and 2 inhibitors have been also developed, and this inhibitor promotes cell differentiation. There is also ongoing clinical trial in these patients. Finally, this is a genetic landscape of cholangiocarcinoma. There is a high level of genetic heterogeneity in this type of tumor. There is potential therapeutic target, 30 to 40% of the tumor, mainly in intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, and maybe also this kind of alteration that are pathognomonic could be used for the diagnosis, as a help for diagnosis for adenocarcinoma of unknown origin that are sometimes found in the liver. Thank you for your attention.